Welcome to Up All Night DIY. I'm Monica. Thanks for joining me. You're watching the first annual Holiday Open Power Playlist, where you'll find a variety of holiday DIYs by an array of talented creators. Grab a cuppa and kick back and relax while we create a couple of cute wee Christmas elves and a toy blocks display piece. Let's get into it. We'll be using a pack of Crafter Square wood blocks from Dollar Tree, 4 1.4-inch foam balls, also from Dollar Tree. They come in a 6-pack. We're going to need some toothpicks. I'll also be using some Model Magic that I've colored with acrylic paint. These are left over from previous projects. I'll link a video that shows how I tinted the clay. It's super easy. I have some wood letters here that spell joy. I cut mine with my Falcon laser cutter, but you can use pre-cut, rub-on stamps, whatever blows your hair back. I've already painted them with Ceramcoat Watermelon. I'll also be using some snow text and some other bits and bobs for embellishments. First, let's give our blocks 2 coats of white paint. I'm using Ceramcoat White, but any white will do. Now 2 of our blocks will get 2 coats of Ceramcoat Parslely. I'm going to leave the flat areas white. The green will be a loose application, as I want these blocks to look like vintage toys. You know what I'm saying? The third block will get the same treatment, only with Ceramcoat Watermelon. You know that watermelon is my go-to red and parsley my go-to green, especially for Christmas projects. But again, color choice, totally up to you. Do your own thing. To pump up that retro vibe, I painted quasar stars top left and bottom right on the front of my blocks. I placed red vinyl quasars on the flat spots on the green blocks. The end stat will show once it's assembled. You guys know I always have my quasar stickers on hand. I use them so much that whenever I'm cutting anything, I always throw in some quasars just to make sure I don't run out. And I cut these with my silhouette. I'll sand my blocks to distress them, revealing some of the raw wood. Using tacky glue, I attach the wood letters to the blocks. I'm going to do my best to center them. Those wee quasars really help with that, getting them nice and centered. The red quasar stars, they're going to need a green drop shadow, so I'm going to do that with Americana Festive Green. I'm just basically outlining the one side of the star, keeping it nice and close to the vinyl. Let's add some age to our blocks with Tim Holtz Vintage Photograph Distressing Ink. I'm just going to pounce this on with a cosmetic sponge, until I'm happy with the grunge. You feel me? And we're going to add some more tacky glue to attach them to each other. Just want to make sure that, they're lined up well. Cute. We're going to grab our foam balls and press flat spots on the top and bottom of each. I'm going to use a jar lid to do this. I'm just going to press down on top of the ball. So that'll create the flat spot on top. And of course the table creates the flat spot on bottom. All 4. I condition a handful of red clay by kneading it, and then we're going to roll it nice and flat. Now we're going to take that clay, drape it over our ball, and let's cut away some of the excess. Got a little bit more than I need here. We're going to keep that excess handy. So now we're going to press the clay to the ball to make sure that it's well adhered. We'll fill in any gaps with the clay that we just cut away. Once all the excess gaps are filled in, we're going to roll the ball around on the table and smooth it out. Going to let the bodies rest a wee bit while we cover the other 2 balls with the peach colored clay. I used Ceramcoat Tawny to color this clay, and it's basically the same exact process as we just did with the red balls. I'm rolling out a nice thin cane of the green clay. I used Festive Green To tint this, Festive is an Americana color. We will use the cane to add stripes to the bodies. I'm going to go vertically with the stripes. We're also going to add some white stripes with the Model Magic. The clay is naturally white, so no worries there. Didn't need to add anything. Of course, you could always paint the stripes on too, assuming you want stripes. But I thought it would be fun to use the clay. So I'm just pressing it into place and using my finger to tap it down. It sticks pretty well to itself, so it wasn't really necessary to incorporate it like we would everything else. I'll go in between the green with the white. I've rolled 2 wee balls of peach clay. We'll cut them in half to create the cheeks for Fiddle and Faddle. Cutting them in half creates the perfect cheek shape, kind of squishes them down a little bit. So we're just going to pop those right into place on their faces. And I'm going to incorporate the cheek with the clay on the face by rolling over the seam of the cheek with the handle of my clay tool. You can use a paintbrush handle as well. We just want to kind of smush the 2 clays together a wee bit without jacking up the shape. This is a small piece, so you want to do this really gently. Adding dimples by pressing a divot into their cheeks by pushing up from the underside of the cheek with my tool. A paintbrush handle works here too. Perfect. Little dimples. We're going to roll 2 small balls of red clay for their noses, and we're going to pop those right in between their cheeks. We'll incorporate them a little bit too, but again, because it's so tiny, we want to be really gentle. I'll push half a toothpick into the tops of their bodies, and I'm going to center the heads by sliding them onto the toothpick. We just want to make sure that the head is centered on the body. I want to fill in that gap around their neck, so I rolled another white cane of clay to create a collar. Just wrapping it around, and we'll have the ends meet in the back. And only there where the ends meet am I going to incorporate it. I want to keep that rolled shape, so, nice rounded collar. We're going to make their hats by rolling some green clay into a pointy shape. So I just have a wee lump here. I'll roll a nice little point into it. And I'm going to spread out the bottom nice and wide. I'll do that by pressing it down on the table. Very simple. Once again, we're going to use half a toothpick, this time to anchor his hat to his head. So we're just going to push that toothpick into the center of his head and slide the hat down over it. The green clay is very soft, so I'm just using my fingers. I don't really need to incorporate it. Just pushing on it, that should do. I trimmed the base of the hat with another white cane of clay. I want to keep that rolled look, once again, so it kind of looks like fur. And we'll incorporate it where it joins up in the back. To create their arms, I rolled a slightly thicker cane of red clay, and I'm going to cut that in half. Set that aside for the mouth. They're going to need some hands, so I rolled a peach clay ball proportionate to the size of their arms. I'm cutting that in half, and I'm going to roll these individually into balls, just like so. I'm using another half of a toothpick to anchor his arms, so I'm just going to push that into the side of his body and push the clay arm into place. I'm going to incorporate that around the back using my tool handle. His arms slightly wraps around the front onto his belly. I add another bit of toothpick to the end of his arm, and we're going to take one of those peach balls and push it right on there to create his hand. With my tool handle, I'm creating a little impression in his hand, big enough for him to hold this candy cane. There we go, that should fit. That'll get glued on later. We'll attach his other arm and hand in the exact same way. His other hand, however, will be idle. It's just going to rest on his belly. To finish off his sleeve, I've rolled another thin white cane of clay, and we're just going to trim out the sleeve on both sides, giving him some fur trim there to match his hat. And of course, everything that we do on Fiddle, we're going to do on Faddle. But I did everything on the opposite side for Faddle. So his other hand will be holding the candy cane. You know what I'm saying? Well, you'll see. They're elves, so naturally they need some pointy ears. And to create the ears, all we did was roll another peach ball, cut it in half, just like for the cheeks. And we're just going to shape those and press those onto the side of their head, incorporating them slightly. And you know, I am going to kind of fuss around with the point to make it more pointy. This still kind of looks like, I don't know, Charlie Brown's here or something. So we just want to give it a wee pinch at the top. There we go. The slightest of points. Now these guys are going to go nani for at least 8 hours, and then we'll take care of them when they're all dry. In the meantime, let's dingle up our joy blocks. I have here a bottle brush Christmas tree. I added some gold beading. These are all from the Dollar Tree, the tree and the gold beading. It was like a Christmas necklace or something. I'm going to use my Fabrifix glue to attach this bad boy to the center block. And I'm going to hold him in place for a moment or two until the glue dries. The green blocks are going to get these little styrofoam cubes that are wrapped to look like presents. We'll use the fabric glue to attach those as well. Originally, I intended on having the elves on the end blocks, but they're just too big, so I thought this was a good alternative. For a tree topper, I cut that little neck piece off a mini Christmas ball, adding a wee bit of glue here, and we're just going to add that to the very top of our tree. Almost looks like a cherry. I got these mini balls at the Dollar Tree as well. Then I have these two star-like glittery deals. We are going to stick those on the top of our presents because they have a real mid-mod vibe to them, don't you think? And I do love this color green. I love this glitter. I will get those glued down to the top of the packages. Cool, cool. Let's add some snow text. This is just like a texture paste, kind of gritty, sandy. Anyhow, I'm just going to use a stiff bristle paintbrush here. I'm going to add it around the base of the tree. I'll go in between the blocks, build it up in there, and just surround the pieces on top of the blocks. To make the snow glisten, I'm going to shake on some glamour dust. And glamour dust is just an opalescent, iridescent, ultra-fine glitter. And that's it. This piece is done. I did, by the way, spray the blocks with a clear matte sealer before I added all the goodies on top. Now that the boys have had a good night's rest, they're ready for some detail. First things first, we're going to add their eyes. So I'm using my 000 detail brush here. I'm going to pick up some hippo gray paint and 2 little arches over their cheeks, and then we're going to add little dots to create their pupils. See, simple little arches. Using my stylus to dip that in his little pupils. He's going to be looking off to the left. There we go. And Faddle will be looking off to the right. A quick little smirk in Watermelon from cheek to cheek. We're going to dry brush his cheeks with some Watermelon. So I've loaded my brush, offloaded the majority of the paint onto a paper towel, and I'm going to gently build up the color until I'm happy with its depth. Using my 000 detail brush once again, I'm going to add swirls to his cheeks and his nose. Wee white swirls. With raw sienna, I'm going to add some details to his ears. Just a little outline on the outside and a wee bump on the inside for definition. I used a pencil eraser to add watermelon dots to his hat. I'll outline some white quasars, 3 to be exact, across the sleeve. I add white dot highlights to his eyes and to all the red dots on his hat. You know what, let's add some green dots in between those quasars on his sleeves. Time for the floating medium, do a little shading. I'm going to prep my brush with the medium just by getting a nice healthy coat on there, working it into the bristles. I'm going to side load by picking up some of this raw sienna onto the very corner of my brush. Just going to scoop it on there. I'll stroke my brush onto the plate. You see it's right there on the corner. Stroking onto the plate. This blends the medium and the paint, and it gives us a gradient of color, which is perfect for shading. I'm going to hold the paint corner of my brush where I want my darkest shadow. We're going to start here at the neckline and just go completely around his head. Now I'm going to go along his ears, and I'll also go right around where his hat meets the top of his face. And we'll add a little bit of a shadow right here where his hands and his cuff meets. There we go. That should do it. I'm going to shade the base of his hat right where it meets the fur trim with some festive green. We'll shade his sleeves with Americana Cherry Red right here around the cuff and along the arm where it meets the body. That's pretty much all I did as far as the shading goes. And no project would ever be complete if we didn't do a little shading with Tropic Bay Blue. So just right along the edge of the white around his hat, his sleeves, and his neck. To protect these wee guys, I'm going to add a top coat of Deco Art Multi-Purpose Sealer. I'll pounce it on with a cosmetic sponge. Now that these guys are dry, I'm going to add all the embellishments. You'll get to see that in the final reveal. Okay gang, let's take a look at today's projects. First is our toy block display. I love the way this turned out. I think it's just so adorable. To me, this really screams Dime Store Christmas. The wee tree, the wee presents, the glistening snow, and it's going to look really cute, flanked by Fiddle and Faddle. So let's take a look at those fellas, shall we? These two festive creatures are so delighted with their big old candy canes. I topped their hats with a white pom-pom that has like a silver thread running through it. Every Christmas elf needs to don a sprig of holly on their cap. I made the holly by cutting out those little green diamond shapes from some ribbon, and I added a red metallic bead right there in the center. It's the perfect kitschy embellishment. I love the way it turned out. And as a final touch, I added some green sequins down their bellies as buttons. You can see Fiddle and Faddle are side-eyeing that Christmas tree. They can't wait for Christmas Day. I hope you liked today's projects. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I want to thank the fabulous Dawn of Shabby Meets Bling for putting together the animation that you saw in the beginning of the video. I'm going to link the playlist for you in the description box. This playlist did not have any hosts, so it's just going to be a link to the creator's playlist. And also, as always, you'll find a list of my supplies. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Up all night with Monica.